How you doing? This is Evan Sorelli, Vice President and co-founder of T Equipment. We're going to wait to 2:03 and start. We'll have a number of stragglers that are coming in. So approximately 2:03, we're going to start, and I appreciate everyone's patience. Hopefully today we'll find a lot of good information and education on the subject, and everyone can leave here being more knowledgeable about temperature screening solutions, elevated body temperature screening. And while we're getting started, I can say in New Jersey, it's warm, sunny, and blue skies, so it has a good feeling. It's been a while. And to everyone new joining, we're going to be starting at 2:03, so approximately a minute and a half. Patrick, on this particular presentation, any relevant questions as we're going, just let me know, and I'll try to answer them. Some will hold to the end, but I think we'll be in a better position to answer more questions than normal. For anyone new joining, we're going to be starting at 2:03, so in 1 minute we're going to get going. And if anyone hears a crying baby in the background, I apologize. Like many companies, we're working from home and have a newborn. All right, it's 2:03. We're going to get started. First, I appreciate everyone taking the time to learn about temperature screening solutions for worker safety. My name is Evan Sorelli. I'm the co-founder of T Equipment. Hopefully everyone will get some education and product knowledge from this seminar. So just a little bit about things in the news recently. So CDC released guidelines, now it's 3 weeks ago, for reopening schools, businesses, and other public spaces. They suggest temperature screening daily. So as part of that, we'll kind of talk about best practices. What does that mean? How do you do that? And what are the realistic expectations of doing that? By the way, while we're going through, feel free to ask questions. I have someone that'll moderate the questions. The format, we're going to talk about basic technology, best practices, some different types of items that fit different categories of instruments. Some will be specific products, some will be just examples and a couple little illustrations. We're going to actually take the back half of the meeting and do a demo of some live systems so you can see some of them, and then go from there. We're available for consulting calls. We're available to educate people. Someone needs a webinar or a conference call for a particular company or school. We're available. We want to be a part of the solution as much as possible. So who is T Equipment? I'll make this quick. We're one of the largest thermal camera dealers in the United States. We've been in business for over 19 years. We have certified thermographers on staff. We have warehouses on both coasts. We sell major thermal brands, including FLIR, Seek, Fotric, Fluke, and others. We are real people here to help you, no matter where you ultimately go or what you end up doing for your screening process. I suggest you find people that you can work with and who can support you, support your buying questions, and then if you have any questions after the sale, getting that support is important in this process. The call right before this webinar was with a large company who had some of our systems, and we were just really going over some of the best practices and what they've learned and what we know, and trying to fill in all the gaps for them. So it was a great call to see how they were using the equipment. I'm going to go over some high-level guidelines of the FDA and what they say you should be doing on best practices. Now, these are guidelines. We see a lot of different practical applications, which may differ from the FDA guidelines, but talking about the governmental FDA guidelines is a good place to start in your process of understanding screening. So temperature screening, these systems work effectively when you follow the following steps. System is used in the right environment or location. We're going to talk about what is the right environment and what's the right location. The system is set up and operated correctly, of course. The person being assessed is prepared according to instructions. So that means that the person that's being screened or triaged is being read in a way that fits a bunch of guidelines we're going to talk about coming up. The person handling the thermal imaging system is properly trained, and we'll talk about the training processes, what can be very quick training, and some of the classes or courses we have. Guidelines on equipment usage. When you screen someone, when possible, room temperature should be between 68 and 76 degrees Fahrenheit. The humidity should be between 10 and 50%. Most houses that have air conditioning going, you're between 68 and 76 degrees. You know, in my house, we fight about the temperature all the time. It's usually about 70 or 71. And when you control the temperature, it usually comes with controlling humidity. Avoiding reflective backgrounds to minimize reflected infrared radiation. So if you have a choice, you wouldn't do it with a completely glass background behind you. You would set up something behind you. We'll give a couple examples of some of those setups. Using a room with no draft or direct sunlight away from radiant heat. So the no direct sunlight is very significant. One of the questions we always get is, can you use this outside? And the answer is, we do not recommend using it outside. Can you use it outside? In a pinch you can, but environmental conditions are so tough to control. Like right now in New Jersey, it felt like it was 90 degrees outside when I stepped outside a few minutes ago. If I'm in the sun for a period of time, that is going to give my skin temperature, make it higher. So if you're outside, minimum conditions, you'd have to be in the shade. You'd have to control the conditions in which you're taking the elevated body temperature. It gets complicated fast and I'll just say it's very difficult. So in ideal conditions, you're in an air-conditioned room with this room temperature setting that is low humidity and no draft, because if you're standing in front of a fan and it's blowing on you, it's going to affect your skin temperature, stuff like that. So guidelines on testing subjects. Now this is from the FDA, so this is ideally, okay? No facial obstructions, no masks, glasses, hats, scarves, headbands. I just talked to a customer who, has a lot of practical experience using some of the instruments that we've sold to them now, and it's kind of talking about some of the successes and some of the things that they've learned. And one of the ones where people had it was in California, and it was a beanie or something, and nice weather outside, but people wear hats, and they come in, and he could kind of notice that the temperature in someone who does that and has that hat on coming from outside in could be higher. And he kind of, you get to learn as people start screening some of the things that make temperatures different. Hair should be pulled away from the face. Facial skin should be clean and dry. This is very significant. If you put water on your face, put it on your face, you feel the evaporation effect, but it also affects your skin temperature. It's not just the effect of the evaporation. Subject cannot have higher or lower face temperatures from excessive clothing, head covers, facial cleaning products, cosmetic wipes, stuff like that. You can't just wipe your face and go in. Now, these are ideal conditions. We'll talk about masks being the most, probably mask and glasses. Some units that we sell, you can leave the mask on. FDA regulations say you take it off, so it's going to be a decision the company makes. Some units are made that you have to take the mask off. Some units work very well, and I have customers who are using them who can, we have some testimonials and some product reviews that use units where you don't have to take the mask off, and it works. But these are the guidelines. So these are really best practices. It's never going to hurt to take it off. Whether you create liability or you think that you'd rather have the mask on, that's going to be a decision you make. Practically speaking, we see a lot of people, if they have units that support the mask on, use it with the mask on, but best practice is to take it off. Elevated body temperature basics. Now here I'm going to set a realistic expectation of elevated body temperature screening. So the people that think that this is like using a thermometer inside your mouth, it's not, okay? It's not an exact reading. Environmental conditions influence the reading quite a bit. The most effective temperatures are read from the inside of the eye. It's most easily controlled and read. Some units will use forehead temperature, more susceptible to the environmental conditions. So it's inside of your eye, exercise. So what we're doing here is our best work to find people who have elevated body temperatures. So a few false positives are okay. A lot of false positives are not okay. Secondary screening is recommended by the FDA, and it's going to be recommended by us as well. So think of your goal is to triage people who possibly have elevated body temperature to a secondary screening method. Okay, secondary screening method should be clinical in nature. So the FDA said forehead thermometers are okay. Here's my thing on forehead thermometers: buy one that you can trust. There's tons of them out there now. We've tested some that are complete garbage. Some of them are very good. We sell them. I don't care if you buy them from me, as long as you buy something that's reputable. So that's the truth. So don't buy something you can't trust. I'll just put it out there. We have people that are buying that we see all the time that are buying and have bought industrial units that are not made for skin temperature, that don't have the right accuracy range, that some don't work. It's just know what you're buying and buying it from a source that you can trust. So think of screening for elevated body temperature as triaging. You triage them to a secondary screening. That could be with a clinical thermometer, a forehead thermometer that's FDA cleared, a medical grade instrument, whether you want that, and that means you're going to get closer. So at that point, you're either going to be several inches away with an infrared, or you're going to actually make physical contact with a clinical or medical. Now, you could at that point, some states, not every state, require questions. So have you been in contact with someone? I just had a baby a few weeks ago. I got asked every time I couldn't leave the hospital. So there's questions. Now, whether you have to ask that questions at the time of secondary screening depends on the state. But the big takeaway is to know best practices, understanding that it's not going to be 100% perfect. I think if you're plus or minus half a degree Fahrenheit, that's good. Some units are plus or minus 0.9 degrees, again, because you're looking for not an exact temperature, you're looking for an elevated body temperature. So in no way does this product detect or diagnose COVID-19. Stay far away from anyone who says that this is a COVID-19 tester. There's so much product that we see kind of popping up on the market that are, they overpromise and underdeliver. And you'll see price ranges from $2,000 to $30,000. So I could see how there can be a lot of bad information out there. I'll take 30 seconds here and kind of explain something that happened to me. So on Easter, I could tell how this technology affected my life in a very real way. So on Easter of this year, we had Easter dinner and with the kids, and we wanted to deliver food to my father-in-law. So after we were done, we drove 30 minutes with a tray of food, social distancing style. We're in New Jersey. We were going to drop off food outside. So we called my father-in-law, who lives by himself. He has a lot of pre-existing conditions. He at the time was 64, I think. Just had a birthday. And it's like a stubborn old man, great guy, but just stubborn old man, lives by himself, needs a little help, gets some physical therapy and some other things, but he can't leave the house really. We call him, and he thinks it's World War II. So we're like, you know what? Did Grandpa double up on his pain meds? We thought maybe he messed his medicine up. So we went, delivered the food, didn't go inside. At this time, my wife was expecting in like 2 weeks, or very close to delivery. We're not trying to expose ourselves to anyone at home. Um, when we left, we kind of made a few phone calls, called a few family members, and then they're like, "Oh wow, he's been kind of loopy since Thursday." Well, this is Sunday. Thursday, we're doing our math. It's several days. We're like, "All right, he didn't mess his meds up." And then we said to the person on the phone, "Has anyone taken his temperature?" Um, and they said that'd be a great idea. So we're like, "Okay, we're not sure what's going on. He's slightly delirious. He's been like this for a week." We're like, "What the heck?" So at this point, I go, okay, well, let's drive home. I have a thermal imager there that I could take his temperature with from a distance. So I drive home a half an hour, drive back the half an hour, open the door to his house, take my thermal imager, which is at this time was a portable handheld unit. I take his temperature, and it was this unit has an alarm on the front, and it flashed, and it came up fever, and it was it said 102.1. So 102.1. So long story short, we called the paramedic, we called the doctor, and we had to go to the hospital. So we had to have an ambulance come. They actually did not want to take him because he was not short of breath, but we convinced them to go and convinced him to go. It was in the middle of everything, kind of at the height of the New Jersey problem. And he went in and he tested positive for COVID-19 once he got to the hospital. And his temperature at the hospital was 102.5. And I'm safe to say that he's fully recovered. His friend who tested positive the next day gave him the virus, who, went and brought him coffee every day. And he's fine. He went through rehab. He's back at home. He's fully recovered. And his friend's fully recovered too. So it's not all bad. So I could say this technology did work for me to measure temperature at a distance. It measured a high fever. He was sitting with a high fever for a while and just went undiagnosed. And a lot of people can't understand how someone can do that, but when you're a stubborn old man that doesn't want a lot of assistance, it's just one of those things. You don't take care of yourself enough. All right, so let's get into how does it work. So this is an example setup, though I would not recommend this particular setup in the video from a social distancing standpoint, but the video does kind of show a line coming in. This unit here is perpendicular to people being measured. Now, the FDA will say you should stop, which a lot of units do require you to stop. I'm never going to say you can't stop. Coming in from outside straight in to be measured is not ideal. I see a lot of people do it, and it really depends on environmental temperatures outside. If it's 100 degrees out there and they've been standing outside, well, you're going to get elevated results. So it measures radiated skin temperature from about the first 1/1000th of an inch. Typically measures forehead or tear duct surface temperatures. It's an accurate screening from a distance, and those distances could be as far as like 12 feet, or some of them even larger, but we're going to say the closer the better. Non-contact, non-invasive process that allows staff to maintain social distance. Expedites pre-entry screening. Lines are able to move at a more steady pace entering the facility. And the unit on the right is by FLIR, and that unit is measuring someone at a distance where the individual has to select their head on the screen from a screening mode, and it selects the inside. The unit actually looks at the inside of the tear duct. One of the things to review on a thermal is the resolution. Resolution of a thermal is the array. You'll see when you dig into specifications, thermal array, you'll see all kinds of ways that it's described. Some of them will be like 320 by 240, 384 by 240. If you multiply those two numbers times each other, that is how many points of temperature is being measured on the screen. So like the unit on the left, I think it's, I don't have my math in front of me, but say it's 190,000 points. A small unit that may have a 80 by 80 sensor is measuring, 1/5, and don't check my math, but a lot less points. So the thermal resolution of these units can vary wildly. And if a unit doesn't say the thermal resolution, then that's a problem, right? So that's one of the main specs of your camera. So I don't want to lose anyone on being technical, but example setup, a very brief how it works, kind of a line scenario, and we'll kind of go over some more different types of products and go further into how things work. Is this difficult? So this is an example of a setup by one of the units. So this is a unit that has a fixed 5 feet distance, okay? You'll hear black body as a term. The FDA will call a black body as well. What's a black body? It's a fixed temperature source. That fixed temperature source is used to help calibrate a thermal imager to be more accurate. Some units require them, some have them as optional, some need them to be accurate, some work well without it. It's never a bad thing to have a black body if the unit accepts it to make the process more accurate, okay? So setup can be done in minutes. Setup's quick once you know how to do it. Often requiring just a few steps from unboxing. You plug them in, install the software. Essentially, you can start going. However, we're going to talk about training and which software does what. Some have artificial intelligence, some don't. So without getting lost in the minutia, what are the differences? Why do you care? And we're starting with one of our more basic units, the Seek Scan here. So the Seek Scan scans one person at a time. Essentially, you'll see, let's just look at the pictures, forget what's in the writing here. Pass, fail, you set a threshold temperature. The individual here, there's a fixed heat source that is 100% required to be used. Then there's the individual that's being a thermal picture, and then there's a visual picture. So here you're getting pass or fail based on a temperature. This is a very simple system. It's 1995. It's quick, it's easy. It's what are the pluses and minuses? So the minuses, it's a 5 feet range, which is somewhat close. The sensor on this unit is a fairly low resolution sensor, but it's not middle range in terms of some of the resolutions that I've seen out there. Pluses, it's very easy to use. We have lots and lots of customers using them, and a lot of good success stories. Pricing, it's among the least expensive for what it does. That meets a lot of FDA requirements. It has a black body. It's very simple. So at $1995, $1,995 for this unit, and we have 500 in stock or so. Couple customer reviews. These are real reviews from real customers that came in. I think we have 5 or 6 reviews on the website now. If you buy, oh, excuse me, I just right-clicked. If you buy one, sorry, and like the product or even don't like the product, we appreciate a review. The more reviews, the better, so your peers can get honest feedback from customers. Yeah, these are actual customers for the Seek unit. There's more reviews on the site. Here's just a quick picture. You don't need sound. This is an example of 5 feet. You can see that distance. It needs a laptop. These units need a laptop to run. This particular one, that's 5 feet and 2 tripods. That's the heat source that's fixed. That's what's called the black body. You'll read about black bodies occasionally online. That's plugged in. Black body set. Once that green light is going, it's heated up to whatever temperature that it's set at. It's fixed. That's the visual camera and a thermal camera in one unit right there, hooked to a computer. And essentially there's software that gets installed. We have also laptops that come pre-installed software for less than $700. We early on kind of found that people wanted laptops to use. We have them. You can use your own computer. You can use laptops that we have with the software already installed, whatever makes it easy. If you want, you'll get a copy of this presentation, but there is a QR code you can scan here and go to the website, or just go to our website and look at Seek Scan. Different type of product here. The Richtech unit. So this is a kiosk-based system. A kiosk-based system is usually used for self-compliance, meaning someone walks in, they look at this particular unit, It has a facial outline. It's very simple. And they go, a temperature comes up on the screen, and they move on. So small offices, these are popular with self-compliance. Um, they're easy to use. This one, they range from $2,700 to $3,000. There's a V2 of this unit that allows for a remote configuration. It allows for sending emails if there's a problem. It allows for storing data. Storing data. I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions about the actual stored data. What's it? Storing data is optional, whether you want to store data or don't want to store data. I believe next Thursday we're going to have a legal expert come in on the webinar to talk about some of the best practices on the legal side of things on storing data. I had a conference call with them this morning, kind of just going over everything, setting that up. So hopefully it's next Thursday. We'll send out a notice. But it really comes around, when you store your data, how long you store your data, what makes it medical, not medical. The short of it is, if you don't have to store the data, don't. If you want to store the data and that makes sense for your business, great, but do it as part of a policy that you have. And we'll go over some of those best practices as well. I'm not here to set the legal precedent, so we say consult with whatever your system is. But we can save data or not save data depending on what your requirements are going to be. This 6 feet go up. This works from 7 to 12 inches. This is using an infrared thermometer, really, that's sitting on the top of this unit right here, the IR sensor, and measuring a temperature. So I believe this uses a few different points of data, not just a single point that measures. But a thermal is going to be much more powerful than this particular unit. You can do it from a greater distance. You can do it faster. You can but a lot of times it's recommended you have a unit or a user behind it, though it's not necessarily needed. You can have what's called self-compliance. That depends on what you want to see. So again, I'm going to talk about product here. Product here is not overly salesy. It is really just kind of talking about different products, different software, so you can get a flavor of different what's out there. This is a product called Hikvision. This is a networked camera. Think of it like a bullet camera. You're looking at this image remotely. You don't have have to have a user directly there, so you can remotely interface. The complexity of Hikvision networked cameras are going to be much higher. So there's a setup process involved, and you can kind of see from a network standpoint, this is remotely, this is what you can get on remote feeds. You can, and I can access this anyone. You could be sitting, way across the room, and it's networked. The other unit we talked about, someone's at that PC. It's not networked. So this 100% requires internet access. This is a networked camera, bullet camera. The Seek product is you need a PC, though you do not need internet access with the first camera we talked about, Seek. You 100% need internet access with a Hikvision camera. So not getting too far into the weeds on the different products, but I'll just give you an idea of some of the different technologies that are out there. An example of a networked camera here with a metal detector, give you an idea of pricing, around $8,000. So that is a networked camera needing internet access, thermal camera for scanning that allows you to have plus or minus 0.9 degrees Fahrenheit accuracy, that allows someone to walk through, get scanned for temperature, potentially also the metal detector, depending on if that is something a company or school would look for, different type of product. So another solution, this is a kiosk-based solution, much like the last one we showed, except it's a thermal imager. And there's a key difference, is the distance. So this maintains a measurement distance from 1.5 to 5 feet away. So that unit can measure temperature from 5 feet away. It's rather unique. Very powerful. It supports things like image recognition. If you want to know who that user is, if you want to store the data into their file, if you don't want to store it, you want to create alerts. This particular unit is extremely powerful, but it requires setup and configuration. We have a series of training videos that are coming out. those training videos are really needed to get it going if you're going to set it up. It has more IT setup needed. It is also networked. There is an installation team that can help. There's 4,000 installers across the country. Where the other one that you saw, the first unit, the Richtech unit, literally out of the box, turn it on, 20 seconds later, it works. It's taking temperature. If there's a little bit of setup you could do in configuring it, putting it in Fahrenheit and whatnot, but essentially it works right out of the box. It's very simple. If you want to add some complexities and alarms, you can do that, but essentially very quick. This one's going to need some network configuration, so more complicated, but has a lot more capabilities. So here's an example of a Hikvision handheld solution. So this is a unit that works from a 3 feet distance, but it's $999. So where people don't want to get really close, they're doing some scanning, they could do it from 3 feet away from a price point of $1,000. I think we have 30 of these in stock. It makes scanning easy. So people who can't afford the larger cameras and still want to do scanning, but they don't want to do infrared, they could use this as an effective way of scanning. This is actually me testing the unit. That's my son in the background. You know, again, we're from home right now, even though we have quite a few people. I should say my warehouses are fully operational and on both coasts, so we're fully working, just remote. So quick example of software. Software from Hikvision. You can configure it if you want to see. At the very top, the very most interesting thing about this, other than it can be hooked up to a recording, like a hard drive type device, is that it can store an example here. Of the 130 people it screened, 15 people had potentially elevated temperatures, 10 people were not wearing masks, 113 were fine. Here's a picture of someone that says, did they have a mask and who they were. That's, again, if you want to get that involved on storing and identifying who they were, this particular software has image recognition database where it can match it to someone and see, you know, who had what. So if you're trying to look at compliance and who's wearing a mask, who's not, and you're scanning on a network camera and you want to see, I want to record that fact that they weren't wearing a mask and then create a trigger and then record that data, you could. Again, depends on what you're looking to do and how you're looking to do it. Complexity of this, though, is there's a lot of setup versus another unit we're going to talk about now. It's one of our more popular units. There's not a lot of setup involved. It's pretty much a go unit. So here's a FLIR camera. This is one of the best names in the industry. FLIR cameras are FDA 510 cleared. They were used in previous pandemics. Their company's been around a long time. Their price ranges on their cameras range from $5,000 all the way up to $33,000. So there's pistol grips, and then there's tiltable optical blocks. These units require you to select the individual, so someone has to be at the camera itself selecting the face so it can find the inside of the eye. Accurate, very good quality, but it does not have artificial intelligence built into them. So where some units have artificial intelligence, can automatically find the face. The Seek unit we talked about for $2,000 does find the face for you. So it's kind of automated. This does not. It requires an operator. Now here's an example of a camera that scans multiple subjects simultaneously. It has built-in facial detection. So it scans groups as well as people simultaneously. The FDA says group scanning is not accurate. So while this does support group scanning and it can be used, the best practice is to do individuals. So a line coming in, 6 foot social distancing, takes just a couple seconds. Yes, you can scan from, I think, 12 or 13 feet away from this unit, but if you're at 6 feet, that's going to be a much better representation as someone who's far away, even 5 feet. So if you're coming in perpendicular to this unit, getting your temperature scan and continue to move, it makes the lines move very quickly. Scanning is efficient. And the artificial intelligence in this, and I'll have other slides, is one of the really great factors. It's automatically selecting the face. If you have a tea, coffee, something hot, it is filtering that out. So that is a key feature that makes it easy. We'll talk about how it can automatically adjust for environmental variables as well. So again, these people are wearing masks. FDA will say, you should not wear a mask during screening. We see a lot of people that do use it with masks, so it just depends on what you're comfortable with. Lines come in, they move quickly, lines can keep moving. It can detect temperatures of moving subjects. However, FDA suggests you stop and look in the camera. It's never going to be a bad idea. Staff monitoring a screen are able to maintain ample distance to those passing through. This one has a fairly high resolution thermal sensor. We have, can't reveal names. There's a national airline that is using this, quite a few other companies as well. We do have references. We'll talk about some kind of reviews coming up. Automatically detects and locks into the face. That makes it easy. The picture on the left, they have their glasses on. I'm gonna say don't leave the glasses on. It's usually more accurate if you take the glasses off. Depends on the unit you're using. This unit compensates for that, but inside of the eye is going to be the most accurate place to take the temperature. So it'll still work, but I'm going to say best practice is taking the glasses off. The facial detection algorithm works very well with this, helps prevent false positives. Alerting. This also works with the Fotric, but it's an example of audio and visual alerts. When a normal temperature is detected, an audio alert is made and a red box will appear surrounding the face. You can turn that off. You do not have to have audio and visual alerts. You can have it just for the operator. You could turn the temperature off. So sometimes you don't even want to see the temperature. You just want to see if it's above whatever the normal is. So the camera will take a picture automatically if you want to store it in a designated folder, or you can just turn that feature off and don't store any data whatsoever. But just an example of people stored, if someone's read, if you want to give it for self-compliance, if you want to read out abnormal temperature detected, if you're using it for an individual, you can. If you don't want to say that at all, then you just turn that off. So it just depends on how you want to configure it. Configuring a space. The picture on the left is my office with some of the people who are doing the testing for me. For us and the configuring of some of our kits and everything else we're doing. So they're maintaining six feet distance. Yes, it is measuring both, but they're walking up to the camera, trying to be perpendicular. That's just a view of what it could potentially look like as you're walking in. On the right, it's just a line formation, people walking in. Ideally, you would want to keep social distancing standards, so people would be more spaced out, but that's just a kind of example of how it would work. I'll say ideally as well, scanning from outside in, the ideal situation is the environmental temperature is the individual is adjusted to environmental temperature changes. So if it's hot outside, someone comes inside, there should be a several minute resting period before they're scanned. Now that's ideal. We see a lot of interesting applications into the marketplace on how they're using it. This particular unit, let me just see the next slide here. Oops, go back one more. So this particular unit has a learning algorithm in it. So it's common, say that the morning goes, we're in the summer months, the morning comes through, people are coming through, average temperature, it's reading 96.5, 90, or 97.5. Is the average skin temperature coming through. Well, and then at nighttime, another shift coming in, it's hotter outside, so the temperature might be, say, 98.5 as an average. So using what's called a Hawk AI or artificial intelligence, it can measure and sample people and then adjust for those environmental conditions, because if someone had an elevated temperature, it would be even higher than that. So it can learn and help adjust for environmental conditions. That's fairly unique to the Fotric 226B, and one of the selling features. A large company that I talked to again on the call before, they love that particular feature compared to some other units. It actually performed very well for them, and they were using the artificial intelligence functions, and they were a multi-billion-dollar company. Some reviews, actual reviews. I will say that one of these companies on here told me about screening, that in their first couple weeks of using, they had, I think, about a dozen units from us they were using to screen. They had about 12 people identified, triage to secondary screening that failed for an elevated temperature. They sent them home. Success, what they sent back to us is that 6 of their 12 tested positive for COVID-19. So they're really happy that they had an impact on their on it and found it. Again, this thing does not diagnose it, but finding that temperature, it helped alleviate some of the problems. It was a factory setting. One of the other parts, and you won't read this in a spec sheet anywhere, is why do we use thermal screening? And from an employee standpoint, it does, and if you're an owner or a manager, you want your employees to feel safe. And while we cannot control everything regarding what's going on outside, we can control some things. And controlling potentially who has an elevated body temperature, can help find a problem. It's certainly not a perfect solution, but it can help find a problem, can mitigate what we can control, the part of it we can control, which is finding who has an elevated body temperature. Um, and it can make our employees feel safer that we're actually doing something. We give a darn about what's going on, and trying to make them feel safe for what we can control. Because at the end of the day, that's going to be a very important part to this puzzle. There's more reviews on our site than this. These are just a few we did, or we had customers do. So this is an actual customer of ours. We found this article online, and they labeled their Fotric 226 the Deputy Thumador. Thought it was kind of neat when I actually saw the article. And they quoted some quotes off our website about it. But a customer, this was in a news article. You can Google it. You'll see it's a pretty neat application they used inside of a sheriff's office. Here's an example of an all-in-one package that we had a customer who wanted to show the data as people walked in. They wanted to show the data to the people coming in. They wanted to see themselves. You could turn the temperature readout off. So if you don't want to see the actual temperature readout if they're coming in, but they wanted to see themselves. So this is an all-in-one system. This is your camera plus a 50-inch TV plus a cart plus the laptop to run it for $6,600, $6,655, I think. Wow, and if you can hear a cat meowing in the background, I apologize. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, so it's an example of an all-one package at a fairly affordable price considering some of the prices are in the marketplace. We have lots of these in stock, so we can ship immediately. So now I want to get to a part where we have training. There's a company in New Jersey called Infraspection Institute. We offer operator training. It's $595. This class is essentially 5 to 7 hours. There's testing at the end if you want to be certified. But we recommend if you're going to invest into the program and you're investing into a solution, you're investing into someone to learn about this. If you get certified that, hey, you know what, I really know what I'm doing. And this class is not just on a Fotric unit, it's not just on a Seek unit. It covers all kinds of different technologies, covers the basics, it covers best practices. Once you get through this 5 to 7 hour class, you really have a great background, and you can be certified that mitigate some things. So if someone comes in and say, well, how do you know you're using this right? Well, our operators trained, and we have the certification from Infraspection Institute. It's $595. It's an online class. You can access it. You can get training. I highly recommend it, and it's not required, but it's very useful. So I'm gonna just cut this over to David here. Let's go through our last slide. I got a little bit longer than I should have to get to the demos. We have non-contact forehead thermometers. I think all these are in stock now. They're good for secondary screening. They're all FDA cleared. This is a occupancy management system. So people have come to us to say, oh, we want to count people, how many are in our store. So we have a system to do that. People who want to certify, okay, I have 50% of my total required people or whatever is needed as regulations come down. It's like 99.9% accurate. Very, very, very good system. The company's been around a long time. If you have any interest in that, let us know. Um, just a little bit, you could scan the QR code, schedule a call if you want a consultative call about technology, education, if you want us to do anything, if you want us to get on a level, have a call just with your company or your school or anything like that. We can. We're here to educate. We're here to help. Again, we want to be part of the solution. We do have references of people who have used equipment. We have some limited demo gear available as well. We're trying to rotate that gear out there. There's a large demand for it. Now, kind of rushing through, I want to give the last 15 minutes here over to David. David is he's one of our senior engineers. He's going to demo some of the equipment just so you can get an idea of what it is, what it looks like, what's it do, kind of things. Let's see, Patrick or Dominic, if you're here and you can make David a presenter, that would be fantastic. I'll try to do the same. Oh, there you are. All right, David, you're now the presenter. And for anyone who can hang in there, I recommend seeing it. It'll just give you a better idea of what there is out there. So David is online here. He's going to be sharing his screen momentarily. David, can you hear us? Oh, seems that David is having some audio issues. David's logged on. He's going to try. Okay. So he's not working. Patrick, at this point, I can take any questions you may have, as it looks like okay. Okay, here's a question. Can the Fotric 226B scan multiple people at the same time? So the unit is marketed like that. It can scan multiple people. However, single person scanning is how we recommend using it, and it's how a lot of people are using it. It will work for group scanning. The FDA will recommend that people get scanned individually. There's another. Does the Seek scan or any other unit support integrations? So a couple things I didn't mention, units like the Richtech unit, the Hikvision, the kiosk terminals, and even the Fotric 226B supports, they support like opening a door. So on a pod, you register your temperature, you've cleared, then you can trigger a door. The Fotric unit uses Modbus. The Richtech and Hikvision products have a couple different ways they can trigger a relay to open a door. So if that's something you want to do, as far as getting data out, the answer is some units do support getting data out. The networked units, you can absolutely get the data out and do a lot with it. Just depends on how you want to how you want to do that. All right, another version of HIPAA requirements. So all the requirements on that type of issues kind of remains to be seen on how your company wants to institute the best practices of how it works for them. We will have a legal presentation next week. We're trying to use a device like Hikvision for screening people walking into a pool. Is it possible to set up a screened in tent to create a mock indoor environment? So you can, but it's going to be difficult. If people are coming in if you're in an outside environment and you're scanning someone and people are just coming underneath a tent, you can try keeping the temperature a similar temperature going in and see the kind of results you're getting. Just it's going to be much harder controlling the environmental conditions to get it to be accurate. When is that webinar? So the webinar should be the following Thursday. It'll be on the website after this Thursday, links to it with the actual presentation. We're just finishing the slides. There'll be a little intro similar to this presentation, but a lot less. And then the second half will be all from a legal point of view, from a guest. Again, about people wanting to do screened in tents with the mock indoor environment. You can do it. It's much more difficult doing anything outside. If you want to see, if you were just to walk into the sun and then take an infrared thermometer and take your forehead temperature, it just takes not even a very long period of time for that to heat up, and you'll see it in there. And then you go right back inside into a controlled environment and see how long does it take to cool down. You can kind of get just a very simple idea of what environment does to skin temperature. All right, I appreciate everyone's time. If anyone needs a conference call or a consultation, you can email us, you could scan this QR code, you can chat with us, you can call us. We have a lot of very, very knowledgeable people, a lot of engineers, very knowledgeable staff that is here to help. If anyone needs pricing, quotes, stuff like that, we can do that as well. We are here to help. I think we'll get out of here just a couple minutes early. How large is the picture taking window in relationship to the device? So it depends on the field of view on that particular unit. Like the Fotric 226B, it's fairly wide actually, and it works from 12 feet away. Like the Seek unit, it's going to be much narrower as the picture we were saying. The Seek unit is a $2,000 unit because it needs that black body to work with the user. Where a group screening device typically is a larger field of view, and they can work from a greater distance. Some of that distance is going to be very dependent on the actual thermal resolution of that particular thermal imager. Any other questions, please feel to reach out to us. Again, we're here to help. If we can help in any way or help educate, please let us know. Thank you very much.